So shortly after I named our house finished, it wasn't really finished, but I call it finished, I bought an old antique wooden boat. It was a Grand Banks 36. It's a real good name brand, but this boat had been sitting in our warm fresh water for 30 years, so it had some issues. And I renovated it, front to back, bottom to top. It turned into a show boat. We won trophies every time we entered a show, and it was an awesome boat. This boat was my passion at the time. We took trips on it. We spent the night on it hundreds of times. There was nothing too good for this boat. It got first class treatment on everything. The kids were grown and gone. My jobs were getting a little bigger and a little more profitable. We had a little bit of spending money. So this boat was babied, and it was beautiful. We loved this boat. One thing about the boat bothered me though. It had the original engines, and they had close to 5,000 hours on them. And I was always concerned about how long would they last before something major was going to break. So then I got a call from a guy that owned a boat yard. I knew him. I was familiar with his yard, and I knew the boat he was talking about. It was an abandoned Grand Banks, exactly like mine. It was in unsavable condition. He was offering the boat to me for free. He wanted me to haul the boat off. I didn't think that was practical. I countered-offered with I would cut the boat into pieces small enough for him to get rid of, and I would keep all the pieces I wanted, and I would leave him with a big old giant pile of crap. He accepted. I got some guys from work that know how to work, know how to use power tools, know how to be safe, and we cut the boat up, and it was quite a project. It took 3 full weekends. So the boat had 2 Ford Lehman diesel engines just like mine, and I went into this project thinking I would get those engines, I would rebuild them totally top to bottom, and then a long weekend or a long week I could get some friends and we could pull the motors out of my boat, and I could put these freshly rebuilt motors in my boat, and then I would be happy. I would live happily ever after. So it turned out these engines were not a matched pair. One was an older version. It was a 108 horsepower with removable sleeves, and one was like mine, a 120 horsepower version. So I didn't want to mismatch engines, so I took the 120 horsepower one, I rebuilt it and sold it for quite a bit of money, and I sold so many parts off of this boat to other Grand Banks owners that I more than made up for what it cost me to hire these guys to cut the boat up, and I got left with a bunch of treasures. So a while back I took the front deck that I had brought home and made a table. It's for the kids' room. It's pretty bulletproof. It is all made out of scrap from that boat, and I routed out the original caulked seams and insert some oak strips. And this was another table I made. This is also from the old boat, and this is also built entirely from pieces from that old boat. This is the front corner. So the deck itself is made of teak strips, and the framing of the whole boat was made of a wood called yacal, Y-A-C-A-L. Now teak is going for about $50 a board foot, believe it or not, and yacal I don't even think you can buy in this country. And then I made a table for my sister-in-law. Well, no, I made 4 tables for my sister-in-law, outside tables for her yard. This is from that back deck, and I'm not sure how they held up. I hadn't seen them in 10 years. And then I took the long side decks and put them together and made a table for my daughter's family room, and it has spent as much time with kids on top of it as next to it, and it's held up well. And now I have the other quarter piece of front deck that I'm going to make a table out of. In a continuing effort to deal with my impending antiquity, I'm going to pull out this last piece of a boat that I cut up and see if I can't do something with it. If not, I could just give it away or burn it. But it's been here for many, many years, as has this piece of a office tabletop, and it's warped, so that's trash. Yep, these are left over from my dining room table, these curved pieces. But anyway, let's get this thing out of here and see if it's going to work for something. So I got it flipped upside down on the sawhorses. This would have been the ceiling material in the V-berth. A little bit of teak trim, and these are the little tacks that held that ceiling material. It was, it was bent over and nailed, and then I don't know how it was, but one more little piece of teak trim. Let's get all these nails. I saved them because they're bronze, and I have used them over the years. But let's get that stuff off. Look at these big old bronze screws right here holding it. So if my current plan to make this piece of boat deck into another end table matriculate, I'm going to need to remove this board. This used to be one board. And to do that, I need to remove this one. I started mangling it up pretty good the other day, getting the screws out. But this edge is so mangled up anyway, even if I reuse this piece, which I probably will, I'll just shave off like a 1/4 inch and glue a new board on, because, you know, over the years things have taken its toll. It's got a bajillion screw holes. So I got to get out these big screws. They're in like every 7 inches all the way down. And this brings back memories of me working on my Grand Banks. These are bronze, so they are in pretty good shape, but the heads are a little bit oxidized, so you got to be careful getting them started so you don't you know, cam out and ruin the joint. Anyway, yeah, this is how I'm doing it. So the first 2 screws came out, and then I got the camera out and turned it on, and then the 3rd screw did not come out. Everything was right. I had the joint clean. I got the bracing bit in there. It was super snug, and it would turn a little bit, and then it would stop. I don't know, the screw must have been bent or something. But I kept trying back and forth, and finally the bit cammed out or slipped out of the slot, and then the slot was ruined. And after that, it was it ain't gonna happen after that. Now this screwdriver head is ground to be very tight in the screw head, so you can put it in place and you can tap it. Where's my hammer? If you put it in place, tap it down there, it really sets in that screw slot. See, it's holding itself up. And if I put all my muscles, which is not much, okay, it's turning. Oh, crap. Okay, that's what I didn't want to happen. But it happened anyway. But it did turn a little bit. So I chiseled some more wood. I was trying to make sure that that wasn't wood making it harder to turn, and no, it wasn't happening. I used the impact drill to, and sometimes the impact drill works, but it wasn't working this time. So basically I punted. I'm gonna have to try to drill this thing out after I get it moved across the room, where it's not in a good position right here for me to work. So I'm gonna move it and attack this screw later on. We'll leave it alone for right now. All right, so I moved over here where I can hold the board better. I got it in the vise on that end. And that wasn't very pretty, but I think I have enough of it gnawed away where it'll just come off. We got 10 more to go. So when I replace a good part of the bottom of my good boat, and every couple of years maybe another board or two, I did hundreds of these from the bottom facing up. I couldn't do that now. Save my life. I can barely do one facing down. Oh, I wonder if this will work better. Well, maybe the newfangled tools are better than the old-fangled tools. I don't know. I tried one earlier, and I had to start it with the bracing bit, and then it did okay with the impact drill. So the impact seems like the perfect tool for this, but the bit tip does not fit the screw heads as well as the one on the bracing bit. The bit tip I'm using is cut from an old spade bit, and it's just not quite as thick as this bit, and I can't hammer on the back of the drill, or I'm not hammering on the back of the drill like this. So I've used the bracing bit to get all of them at least started, and then sometimes the impact drill works great and just runs them out.
This is how I made my screwdriver bit for the impact drill. I just took a spade bit that had a 6-sided shank, and I cut it off and ground it so it fit those screws as well as possible. It could be a little thicker, but it did pretty good. I'm going to keep this little tool. All right, we were doing pretty good until I got to the one next to the one that wasn't good, and this one isn't good, and I got it kind of drilled out. So right now I probably could pry it off, or I'm going to have to pry it off, but before I do, I'm going to sand this paint off, and then I'm going to take my power plane and run this down about 1/4 of an inch to clean unmangled wood, so I can glue a strip back to get it back looking like it's supposed to.
So you might be saying to yourself, that old man's going to an awful lot of trouble to save this little piece of wood deck. And you may or may not be right, but I'm saving a piece of history. Nobody makes boats with these solid structural teak decks. Now, if you see a newer boat with a teak deck, the teak is not as good a quality, and it's probably 1/8 of an inch thick, and it's glued to a fiberglass deck. So this just doesn't happen anymore. Two, we had 14 years of that pretty boat, and we had good memories of it. So it's kind of hard to look at the table and not think good thoughts. And 3, I just think it's kind of cool looking. David has accused me of being in the prime of my senility, so I'm going to do this while I can, and I enjoyed every bit of it, almost.
Okay, so I did go through some screws, but they're all bronze, so I don't think I mangled my blade up. These were the screws that held the bronze half round to protect the wood, and yeah, I've been through this before trying to work on my boat. They easily break when you try to get them off.
So the rub rail portion of this deck still did not want to come off, so I went to the bottom and cut, maybe thinking it was mastic, and I cut along the bottom, and I was hitting screws, and I was a little confused, and then I flipped it over and was cutting from the top. So cutting from the top, same situation. I was definitely hitting screws, and I couldn't figure out where they were coming from. I know I did this before for the last table. It's been, I don't know, 15 years, and I can't remember. But then I thought maybe before the teak deck planks were installed, they had screws coming from that angle. So I said, well, I'll pull up that outside deck board and see what's underneath there.
No, I'm not going to do that, because these are not screws holding this deck down. These are ring shank nails, and they don't come out without doing a lot of damage. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. If they're screws, I guess I'm cutting through them. Not very fast, but I guess I'm cutting through them.
So I punted with the oscillating tool and got the jigsaw, and it cut right through the screws. I got the angle set. It was kind of a guess. It's a little too much of an angle. It kind of made it harder to fit the thing back on there later on, but such is life.
Well, it wasn't going to come off without that, because there is just as many big screws. 1, 2. They're staggered between the other screws, and they must come from the inside, because the heads are not on the outside. Interesting. So now I got to get this board off. I wonder how many jillions of screws are on it. These boats were made to last. So now it's time to get this board off. It looks like there's a screw here that went into a frame, and this frame's cut off, but this would have gone straight down into the boat like a stud. And there was one here that's all broken up, and here's a screw. Now there was no frame here, and there's no screw. And there was no frame here, and I don't know if there's a screw. But there was a frame here, and the screw's broken. So I'm going to take out these couple of screws. Now there is some rot here on this yackle, which is pretty unusual. It's pretty robust wood, but keep in mind this boat was 50 years old when I cut it up. 50 years it had been out in the weather, and for the last 12 nobody had touched it. It just sat there out in the sun, in the rain. Now the plywood, this plywood that the teak is screwed to, pretty common for that to rot. It's good plywood, it's mahogany plywood, but you know, these little joints will need reseaming, and they don't get reseamed and water gets in there and stays. So plywood's rotten, not too surprising. The yackle's rotten, kind of surprising. You don't see that very often. This must have stayed wet for decades for that to happen.
Now the whole planking of these boats was mahogany. It definitely has a lifespan.
Okay, so those two screws came out really easy. The one on the end's not really doing anything because the board's all split. So I don't know. I don't understand these screws, which way they go. I just don't understand. But anyway, I'm gonna cut it with the jigsaw again because that seemed to work pretty well. And remove this piece, and then need to make a template and bring it inside and see how much of this thing we're gonna use and how much we're gonna discard, throw away. I'm gonna guess that this plywood is nailed to this structural framing with those little bronze ring shank nails that Grand Banks loves. So I'm gonna be cutting through a lot of nails, and screws probably, but the good thing is this is all bronze, so it doesn't destroy a bit instantly. All right, mystery solved. These screws that I cut did go from the outside in, and the reason I didn't see the screw heads is because this piece that we took off earlier is two pieces. There's a joint. There's a joint right here. You can barely see it along here. And I guess that made it possible to bend this thing around the boat. So first they put this flat part and screwed it with these hidden screws. And then they put this part and screwed it with these screws that we got out the first go round. So it had a screw every like 4 inches on this rub rail up front. Yeah, it's massive. So this piece here is probably junk, even though it's nice. Well, yeah, this piece is junk. Now we can clean this up, make a template of how big it is, and go in the house and see what I can use out of it, how much can be saved. So this table is made from the other half of that piece that I've been cleaning up outside. It's the mirror image. And I think the reason I never finished, well, I don't know why I didn't do the other one when I was doing this one, but one problem we're gonna have is this pointy thing right here is going to be, if I do it just like that, it's going to be right here. It's going to be a pointy thing right here. It's going to be pointed out right here, and somebody's going to bust their thigh on it like on a regular basis. So I might just have to cut that corner back or something. But anyway, I'm going to make a pattern of exactly what this is, bring it over here and flip it upside down because that's what we have to work with, and we'll go from there. Okay, this is their template. It is fairly accurate enough. I'm gonna bring it over here. If we put it here, see, that's the problem, is that pokey joint right there. Nobody wants that. Here's my flashlight that I like to keep under my bed. So maybe if I just cut that, or if I do it parallel with that one. How about that? I need to get the boss in here. Okay, so this is the flipped over image. We just agreed to cut this corner off. We agreed to cut this corner off so it wouldn't be so lethal to the little heads. And I'm gonna go outside and make sure there's enough good deck to make this from, and I'm pretty sure there is. Let's go see. All right, this is it. It was cutting kind of close width-wise, but I'm real close right here. This is going to be the cut. This is going to be the cut. This is going to be the cut. a cut, and this is gonna be a cut. I'm gonna leave that curve because I have that nice curved piece to go back on it. So I think this is gonna be fine. It's gonna get a lot lighter to mess with for sure, because I'm gonna cut off a bunch of heavy boards like this baby. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna mark it and cut it. I'm ready to cut. I'm not in my head clear how the new fake rub rail that I got to make to go all the way around is going to attach. But I think I'll just cut it plumb, and I'll just deal with the trim pieces later. I think it'll be easier if I just cut this plumb. So I gotta make some. Where's the other? Oh, I didn't make the last mark, but then I'm gonna cut them. Yeah, it goes from here to here. I need to make that mark, and then we're gonna make a lot of noise, and we're gonna cut straight through a bunch of bronze nails. But I'll keep my eyes away, and I'll wear my earmuffs.
This started out kind of badly. I still had the blade on the skill saw for cutting the hardy plank, for cutting the cement board, and I didn't even really think about it because I don't really change blades that often. But it did not want to go through this stuff, and it did not want to go straight. So once I figured that out and put a normal blade on, cuts went pretty well.
I think what I should do now before I start putting trim around the edges is to go ahead and clean these joints of this sealant. It's a nasty job. I did my whole entire boat from front to back, cleaned out all the joints, and I tried different methods. They make a little hook hand tool that you just drag. You can take a sharp knife and cut both sides and try to pull it out. You can use a router with a 1/4-inch bit and a guide. I think the way I did it, it worked the best was with this little saw and 3 blades stacked up. And I'm going to do that, but I can't find the blades. It's only got 1 blade in it. I can't find the other 2. I hadn't done this in over a decade. I might have thrown the blades away. But anyway, that's what I'm going to do. But before I can do it, I need to smooth this out. It's got these little bungs sticking up. And this edge is up high because it was under the bulwarks and it didn't have any wear. So it's up higher, even though it's the same board right here, it's up higher because it hasn't seen any wear from the sun or from foot traffic. So I'm gonna give it a light belt sanding, and I guess I'm gonna go to Home Depot and see if they stock these little blades still. I don't know if they're still available. I'm stuck on the other side because I can't find the saw blades for my little saw, so I ordered 2 of them. Should have them sometime today. So I flipped it over and I'm going to work on the bottom. What I'm going to do is run a 2x2 around the perimeter, so I have something to attach this edge to, other than just trying to catch that little thin piece of plywood. So I'm going to cut these back 1.5 inches, and this one back 1.5 inches. And then the difference, I'm going to slope it back so you don't see it when you walk through the room. And I'm going to glue this around the perimeter. And I'm not going to put fasteners in it because I might have to come with the power plane and put it at a slope. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, but we're going to glue it, and then I can power plane it pretty quick if I need to put a slope on it. So let's cut these off 1.5 inches back and sand the paint off a little bit so the glue will stick better, and go for it. Put some random lines here from the 2x2 back up so you won't be able to see this from the side. And it's kind of hard to cut. I'm cutting it with the jigsaw. It's kind of rough, but I can belt sand it flat. So I'm going to cut these. I'm going to sand the rest of this little bit of paint off. And I'm going to cut these and glue these down. So next time you see this, it'll probably be clamped all the way around. Okay, it's pretty warm today. I'm in shorts and t-shirt. And this is yellow glue. This stuff sets pretty quick. So in a couple of hours, I can take all these clamps off. I'm going to lean this up on edge, and I'm going to pour epoxy down in there. This is where that plywood was kind of punky. stabilize that. And then hopefully by the time that kind of sets up, my saw blades will be here and I can flip it back over and redo those joints. This is the way a quality wooden boat was put together. These are the front cabin sides, this plywood, and they came up above the deck. But they never butted plywood to plywood. They have a little intermediate piece right here. And then on the inside is where they had the brace. So this is just an outside corner. Well, it would have been up here. And they got it braced up. So, man, it's if you keep the water out of it, it's a lifetime joint. Maybe it looks a little bit more like something you might want in your house. But anyway, I'm going to flip it over. I got one little piece that's coming loose. I'm going to put a little piece of epoxy on that. And then I'm going to stand it up and pour some in this punky area to try to get some strength back where that rod is. So when I finish this project, this is going to be all that's left of 36. I think it was hole number 169, if I'm not mistaken. This is all that's left. The rest of it's either been cut up, thrown away, burned, sold, or furniture made out, or turned into furniture. So my 2 new blades came in the mail, and if I stack them all up, it's still not quite wide enough. Let's see if I can show this. Yeah, it's not going to get it all. I don't remember dealing with this last time. It's been a while. I don't think I can make it any wider, or that I don't have enough arbor on the little saw. Let me put those on here and tighten it down and see what it looks like. I might, if I have any room at all, I might can put some like cardboard between the blades and have it cut a little thicker. Okay, the packages gave me some nice little pieces of cardboard with the right size hole in it. And I put one between the first blade and the second blade, and I think I can get another one between the second blade and the third blade. And yeah, we're okay. 3 blades and 2 spacers. I need to tighten this up and make sure that the blade's not going to hit anything.
A couple of practice runs on a scrap, and we're ready to go after the top and do a bunch of noisy, smelly work.
Okay, it's working really well. It's really hard on the saw because the stuff is gummy, it's rubbery. So it's really dragging on those 3 blades. So I'm gonna go slow. Let the saw have some cool down time. Yeah, this is gonna be okay. Brings back bad memories. Did my whole boat deck. I couldn't put the boat deck up on sawhorses. I had to kneel down and do it. Alright. And another day. Boy, they're rolling around fast in my old age. Anyway, all the joints are cleaned, plowed out, kind of swept a little bit. Probably could use a little more. I pulled down a piece of oak from the attic. Pretty sure this is oak. It's kind of hard to tell, it's dirty. And I'm gonna cut this up for strips to put back in here, just like the other one. It has oak strips. And glue them in there and sand it all down, and then start looking at what we have to do for the perimeter. This video might be getting long. This may be the last step I record. I'm not sure. I can't tell until I go edit it. All the clips are still in the phone. So I split my board down the middle, and that gave me some boards that are a 1/2 inch thick, and my joint is a little bit less than a 1/2 inch, so they'll stick up proud, and I'll sand them smooth. The problem is now I need to rip them to get the width, and these widths are all freaking different. So I think I'll measure the widest one I can find, cut the first one up to that width, and then I may have to cut the rest of them a little bit narrower. It's like this one's really skinny. This one's really skinny. Let's do that. I'm gonna try to find the widest width. I'm gonna cut one up that wide, and we'll glue those in and see how it works. Move from there. Definitely gonna run out of glue.
I was trying to belt sand these little strips before the glue set, so some of that the sawdust can fill up some of these cracks from these old worn out deck boards. With the glue still wet, that sawdust will cake in there and it'll make a cleaner, prettier joint. You want to put in the last of these strips, then we basically have a tabletop like most people would start out with, and we'll build from there. But I'm going to end this video, and when we start up again, we're going to have all these will be done and it'll be sanded flat, and we can start thinking about the to me the challenging part is to try to match the rub rail that I have with new wood to make it look like the original boat rub rail all the way around. So thanks for watching.